some people think horror is going to put that anxiety into you, but in a weird way, it kind of releases it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to Creative Ops, a podcast for creative people.
Hey, everybody. Christopher Tallon, host of Creative Ops, a podcast for creative people. I am a creative person. I am a writer. I wrote the book Switchers. You can check it out at ChristopherTallon.com. That'll be in the show notes. But today is not about me. Today's about a different writer. His name is Shawn Burgess. He's from Jacksonville, Florida, where I used to live. We talk about that a little bit. And he writes in the horror, supernatural, dark, weird shit type genre, which I also write in. And we know a lot of the same people in the writing circles. We have a good conversation. We talk about writing, how he does it. We do things just a little bit differently, and that's okay. It takes all kinds to make the world go round. And for all the people out there that are trying to get some inspiration from this, you'll see a couple different ways that people do things. So, find what works for you, adapt, and move forward. All right, folks. Shawn Burgess is, like I said, an author. He's got a new book coming out that's called Sour Roots, which is the prequel. It's a novella, by the way, and it's a prequel to the novel that he wrote called The Tear Collector. And then in the fall, he's going to have another book coming out that's going to be the sequel, and that'll all be packaged up as a nice little trilogy there. This guy's got a great style. It's fun to read, puts you right in there with the characters, and, not unlike my book. It's centered around kids. It has that coming-of-age feel, and kids got to put on their big boy pants. So, really good book. Can't recommend The Tear Collector enough, and I'm going to go out right now and get Sour Roots, because that's got to go in my TBR pile. All right, folks. Here it is with Shawn Burgess. Enjoy. Because people that have listened to the show more than once have probably heard me say this story, so I'll keep it short. I used to go to my grandma's house for 1 or 2 nights on a weekend just to give my parents a break. And when she had something to do, she would just get out a typewriter, stack of paper, and be like,
write me a story about a mouse that gets stuck on a NASA rocket and goes into outer space.
I'm like, okay. And that was just out of boredom. There was no TV. There was 3 channels with a click knob. No internet.
Bruh.
So as a kid, that's what I started doing to entertain myself, and it just kind of stuck as I grew up.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think sort of the same, although I didn't really have anyone prompting me to write stories. But I remember when I was in elementary school, writing some story about this haunted house and there being this pit of maggots. And my parents and their good friends read it, and they got such the biggest kick out of that. And even then, I was sort of drawn to the horror genre. I don't really know why so much, but
because just looking at you, you wouldn't automatically guess, oh, that guy writes horror, because you don't dye your hair black and have heavy metal black fingernails and things that would make somebody be like, oh, that dude looks like he's disturbed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I will say probably some of it had to do with my parents were always big into Halloween, and they did a big JC's fundraiser every year, and their biggest fundraiser was putting on a haunted house. So I say that I did have some exposure early on and just kind of loved the holiday, and I think horror writing sort of goes along with that. And then as I got older,
that was elementary school. You were already writing, and not just writing, but writing stuff that was already on the darker side.
Yeah, definitely. And then through high school and stuff, I continued to write, and I wrote my first novel. It's terrible. It's sitting in the attic collecting dust. I wrote my first novel when I was probably about 19 years old, right out of high school, and while I was going to college at the time, and wrote that. And at that point, I knew I could do it, and I always wanted to come back to it, but sort of life took over, college took over.
Yeah.
I didn't do a whole lot of writing. I met my wife, we had kids. we circle around in 2015. I was reading a book to my oldest son, Brooks, and I was like, "Hey, I used to write. I wrote a book," and he's like,
"Oh yeah, write me one."
So I don't think he ever like understood like the big, massive undertaking he was asking me to do. And then I wrote the Tear Collector, but it turned out being not age appropriate at all.
I was say, how old is your son, or how
And
old
now
was he at the time that you kind of took on the writing?
he's 11. He's about to be 12. At the time, it was 2015. I guess I would have made him about 7.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say 12.
Yeah. Well, he read it when he
Depending
was
on the
like,
kid.
he
Yeah.
read it when he was 9. That's probably bad parenting on my part.
I tried not to let my kid read my book because I say like, it's kind of PG-13. Nothing too terrible, but he's 9 now. And when we went to this coffee shop where they let me put a copy of my book out, he just picked it up and started reading it. And next thing I know, I was talking to a friend. He's like 17 pages deep. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, there's so I'm about halfway through your book, so I apologize. I hadn't finished
Oh
it.
no, dude, I read so slowly.
So do I.
I've had your book, and then it took me a while to get to that because I was reading. Oh, now it's in frame. I had your book, but it took me a while to get to because I was reading Brandon Scott's book, and I was reading that very slowly. Then I read this. Now I'm reading Brian Boyer's book very slowly, but he's also a very good writer too.
So I will say this about your book, though. It's like very fast paced.
Yeah.
Like that's not the problem. The problem is carving out the time. And
No, I hear you. And summer, for some reason, just seems like that's when there should be all the time, the longer days, and
yeah,
it just disappears. Time disappears. Hours disappear. You're like, oh wait, it's 7 o'clock already. Shit.
yeah, right. So yeah, I got yours right here. I love that cover. by the way.
Yay.
Who did your
Oh yeah, thanks.
cover art?
A guy named Kirk Ross, and he does a podcast too called A Talk in the Attic, and he's like self-taught as far as art and music goes. He's an engineer by trade.
Oh wow.
And that was the first book cover he'd ever done, but he'd done some like animation and stuff for his podcast, and he does some really cool promotions with different artistic apps and things. So I was like, hey man, you want to do a book cover for me? And he's like, I'll take a shot at it. So he's like, if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. And I loved it. So
that's kind of funny. I mean, I feel like that's sort of how like my last covers came about too, because I was talking to I was admiring Ava Mouth's. I don't know if you ever seen her work on Twitter.
Well, is that who did yours?
Guess who did the new one? So there's
Yeah. I saw her post with your book.
Yeah, with Sour Roots. So she did one also for the Tear Collector because we're gonna re-release that in September.
Oh yeah.
And she did one for the sequel to that, which is Ghost of Grief Hollow.
Oh, you said sequel. I was like, yeah, prequel. That already happened. But no, the sequel. Okay. The story continues now. Okay.
Yeah, so different timeline.
Do you know when that's coming out yet, or is that still all in the works pretty heavily?
October 25th is the sequel. Yeah.
We don't have to wait very long at all.
No, and September 1st is the re-release of the Tear Collector, but it's probably actually going to release under a different name called Tears of Grief Hollow. Just to sort of like make the series branding match a little bit.
It sounds like when you wrote this book, you weren't thinking series, or if you were, then maybe just more ideas came into play later, and you ended up adjusting, like with the title, like you were saying. So, which that's not really a question. Which was it? Were you thinking series, or were you thinking standalone?
So I think initially I was thinking standalone, but I know that you've read the Tear Collector. It sort of ends in a part that sort of begs for a sequel.
Yeah.
So my publisher was right away like, hey, we would like you to write a sequel. And I was already like halfway into another novel. So I sort of reversed course and then wrote the sequel. But for a little while, I mean, just be honest with you, I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to go with it. So I sort of marinated on it for about 6 months. While working on some other things.
So you weren't like under contract with
I didn't have a deadline
yet or anything like that?
Yeah, I didn't have a deadline, but I knew they wanted to. I mean, they had expressed interest in publishing a second novel in the series.
Nice. I don't want to completely leave the Tear Collector and what are you calling the series as a whole? Just the Grief Hollow.
Just Curse of Grief, the Curse of Grief Hollow.
Okay, so we will come back to that in a second, but I'm curious about the novel that you were already working on when they were like, hey, bring your attention back to this. Is that something that you just abandoned? Is that something you're working on now or you plan to come back to?
So right now I've been working on it some, but I may drop it again. I'm finding it hard to sort of get back into the flow of where I was. Now I'm
Yeah.
sort of in love with the premise on that one. So I can probably tell you a little bit about it without giving too much away. But there's this family, something terrible happens in Memphis, and they end up moving to this inherited property in East Tennessee. And there's like these 3 adjacent towns where these strange miracles start happening, and nobody can really figure it out. There's this like charismatic Pentecostal preacher there, and the boy's health is seriously declining at the same time. So that's kind of the jumping off point. And then it's sort of like a mystery urban fantasy with like elements of horror. I mean, I don't ever stray too far away from the horror tree.
Do you know why horror? Like, I mean, you said that your family was really into Halloween, but was there a particular story that you read? I mean, the first time I read a Stephen King book, I was probably 21, and it was The Dead Zone. But I was just like, oh my god, I got to read another one. And I read like 5 or 6 Stephen King books in a row before I switched authors. And I think probably him more than anybody else. But also when I was really young, I was into what's his name? John Bellers, or Bellairs, however people want to say it, that wrote The House with a Clock in Its Walls and The Ghost in the Mirror and those kinds of books. So I guess I was always kind of slightly attracted to that stuff. And I watched movies that were like rated R horror movies when I was in elementary school that I definitely shouldn't have watched. That probably just warped me. And I was like, well, now nothing will do anything to me.
That's what basements were for, because you could get away with watching whatever you wanted to watch.
Yeah. So were you like a sneak away and watch stuff you weren't supposed to kind of kid, or did you get a hold of some literature that really moved you?
Honestly, I used to read like a lot of horror short stories too, like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, that kind of stuff. Loved all that kind of stuff. And then the first horror novel I ever got exposed to was It. And like from there, it was over, man. I loved it. I'm like,
this is fantastic.
You could just kind of fall into this world. And the thing I love about horror, right, is like there's real horrors in the world, but sort of you read horror, obviously terrible things happen in there, but like it is sort of a contained space.
Yeah. Yeah. Stephen King said something about horror one time that like there are real monsters in the world, and it's easier to deal with the real evil that's like, kind of mysterious and you don't know where it's coming from when you can personify it so like totally in a book and just kind of pull all that anxiety out of you. It's almost like some people think horror is going to put that anxiety into you, but in a weird way, it kind of releases it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other really cool things is like you sort of get to explore characters in a lot of different ways that you probably wouldn't otherwise unless it's horror, because when all this traumatic stuff is happening, you sort of get to the essence of who they are pretty quickly.
Yeah. Who breaks, who stands out, who's going to turn around and leave on you. And yeah.
Right. So you kind of get down to like their fundamental core. And I kind of dig that about horror.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your actual writing process then. Have you always been somebody who kind of has a full idea in your head and don't usually stray too far from that idea from, start to finish? Or are you like me? I'm a pantser. I see how I feel that day.
Yeah, I mean, I would say when I first started, I was definitely a pantser. I would say I'm somewhat of a hybrid now, because I just typically have a beginning and an end, which the end could change depending on how the writing goes in my mind. And I usually have like several pivotal scenes in my mind, and then I sort of just connect the dots. But I have no fear whatsoever in like if a line of dialogue takes me in a completely different direction, I have sort of no fear whatsoever, and like following that where it leads.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Jen, well, our mutual friend Jen
Yeah.
Susi, and also Brandon Scott said he does kind of the same thing where he'll more or less have a bullet list of like, I think this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. But the last two might not happen some days.
Right, for sure. Or like completely unexpected things happen that you just didn't really plan on, but just kind of set themselves up perfectly. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is like a great opportunity to sort of run with this.
Yeah. So, well, you had younger kids then at the time, not like super young diapers and that kind of stuff, right? But still need attention. So, did you have a hard time getting time to write? Because I'm the kind of person that needs to know that I'm not going to be interrupted for at least an hour, or just mentally I can't get in the right space.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I was or my kids were 7 and 5 at the time, and I was doing about 100 overnights a year for work, so
Oof.
traveling extensively for work. So most of the tier collector was written at like 30,000 feet on planes and in hotel rooms, and like at the at my table while eating dinner. I mean, I pretty furiously worked on that for about 9 months. Um,
Yeah.
and just while I was traveling, because I wasn't sacrificing any family time that way. And then
Yeah,
fast
that's
forward.
fantastic.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's like a fantastic use of that time because I also enjoy writing when I'm in transit or just somewhere where you're stuck.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird when you're writing like a super intense horror scene, and like the person next to you on the plane is like kind of peeking over at what you're writing. They're like a little further away from you.
Yeah, and you're like,
And
and
their
their chest was ripped open like a buffet.
Right.
Like,
Like, what the hell?
I don't think that's exactly how you said it in your book, but yeah, it
Yeah.
was pretty
Um,
good stuff. And when they find the guy and they're like, oh, it must have been a bear attack, and they're like,
My ass.
yeah. So, when the pandemic came around, that changed a lot of things because I wasn't traveling anymore. I was like on video calls all day long. My kids were doing the learn at home thing, which is
oh,
total
dude,
disaster.
I don't know how it was in Florida, but it was
Yeah.
miserable in Michigan.
Oh no, it was not good. I learned that me working full time, my wife working full time, and trying to make sure they're doing their school stuff full time. It's not a recipe for success. Yeah, so I had to like totally change things up. So given that my schedule totally changed, so now I write from like 10 p.m. to like 2 a.m. That's like my typical writing time. Now I'm
Are
not
you a
like
night guy anyway?
yeah, I'm definitely a night owl.
Okay.
I,
Okay.
I love to write at night, but now I have to get up at like 7 in the morning. So I'm perpetually tired, but
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah. You got to get it in. I haven't sat down and written in a while just because, well, I haven't done much of anything in a while. You're the first person I've interviewed in a minute because I've been kind of on a forced vacation just so I can have a couple weeks to to relax. But
So I mean, your typical routine though is just like whenever you can carve out the.
my routine lately has just been that I haven't done much of anything the last almost month. But yeah, when the kids are at school, I'll write for a couple hours in the day, maybe work on trying to do some podcast stuff, some social media stuff. And it's kind of a routine that I can get that all done in 5 to 6 hours every day. But summertime, all out the window, man. Just anytime I can.
Yeah.
30 minutes here, half a page there, just writing down some bullets like, ooh, the next time I write, I should do this, this, and this. And then pick up the notes 2 weeks later, be like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, what was I thinking?
Yeah. So yeah, when they get back to school, my process will get back into its thing and I'll regain my sanity. But yeah, you have kids going to daycare then during the
No, so
summertime?
now my kids are 11 and one's about to be 12.
Oh, that's what you said, just about to be 12.
And
Yeah.
the other one's 9. So like, I mean, at this point, they don't want as much to do with me.
Yeah.
You'll get there, Chris.
Yeah. No, I've got two older kids than that too. I've got a about to be 21-year-old and then a 14-year-old just starting high school this year too.
Oh man, you got
So
your hands full.
Yeah. But the, like the 20-year-old and the 14-year-old, they come out for food, or every now and then they'll be like, so and so sent me something on, they'll show me their phone. I'll be like, oh, that's great. And then they're like, all right, see you later. And then I don't see them again for a couple hours.
Yeah,
Which,
my kids are, it's interesting because we're outside of our house right now, like at a temporary house because we had like a little flood. But
oh no, sorry to
yeah,
hear that, man.
oh, I appreciate it, man. It sucks.
Was
We've been
there
out.
was there a tropical storm or something, or what was it?
No, tankless hot water heater just shit the bed on the second floor and poured
Oh,
hundreds of gallons of water through the kitchen ceiling.
oh my God.
Yeah, so we're estranged from our home. We're like a couple of blocks from the ocean, so it's nice. I mean, that part
Yeah.
can suck, but yeah, I'm ready to be back home.
For anybody that hasn't read The Tear Collector already, now that you've got a prequel, but it came out after the first book came out, would you recommend to somebody read the prequel first, or to read them in the order chronologically in which they came out?
I think you can read them in any order. As a matter of fact, even the third book, I think you could. I mean, I wouldn't recommend this, but I think even the third book you can read without the context of the Tear Collector. And it's not that it sort of like goes and explains everything that happened, but you can glean enough context from that to understand the storyline of the first book. Now, I will say, like, you would miss a ton of character development and stuff in the Tear Collector, and I think the fun of that story. But as it relates to the actual prequel and the Tear Collector and then its sequel, the prequel is set in 1932 in Harper Pass. So it's like the same universe, but totally different characters. It's really a different sort of bend too on the storyline, because it sort of makes a supernatural horror and crime in a like thriller type pacing. So I mean, it's pretty different than the Tear Collector, but some elements, obviously would be familiar to people that have read the Tear Collector.
All right. Well, let's start with the Tear Collector, because that's the one that I've read. Give somebody just kind of like your elevator pitch. If somebody, oh, you wrote a book, what's it about?
These four boys that get caught in this police investigation for their missing autistic classmate. And as they start to try to figure out what happened to her and help essentially find her, their story sort of interweaves with a Detective Holt, who's also trying to locate this missing girl. And as they get deeper into this mystery, they start to realize that, there's a lot more going on in this town than, just this missing girl. And essentially, they have to solve this mystery and sort of save themselves by saving their town. But if you like mystery, thriller, horror, blood curse, small town type stories, I think it's a story that'll resonate with you, especially the coming of age aspect.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to ask is when you came up with this story, did you have any of the characters, one of the characters, all the characters kind of pretty well thought out, or did you kind of have the idea for the story and then kind of started playing to see who the characters were going to be? Because I tend to be more of a I kind of like to mess around with characters just with little doodle writings and then go, ooh, this character feels good, and then I'll put them into a story.
So three of the central characters, or three of the protagonists, Brooks, T, and Robbie, they all started from me just basically starting writing dialogue between them. And then like very quickly, I knew who each of those people really was, like sort of at their core. And then everything sort of came from there. But I will say Brooks is fashioned on my son, who shares the name Brooks, who demanded that his name be in there.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be another question too. Was
Yeah.
how did that go over with your kid getting his name put in the character?
Oh, he loved it. He demanded it, first of all, and then he demanded his brother Brady be in it, and also his mom Kirsten. So if you've read it, you'll notice that all three of those names are in there.
Is there a Shawn in here?
There is not. There's no way I'm putting my name in there.
No. Would you ever go the what is it, the Dark Tower route? Isn't it Stephen King wrote himself into one of his books?
Yeah, I don't think that's my flavor.
No.
But I don't know. Who knows? Like if the opportunity presents itself. One of my favorite books last year, or one that I really enjoyed, was Chasing the Boogeyman. And Richard Chizmar sort of like weaves in himself, obviously. I mean, it's fiction, but it's set up to be like sort of like this crime thriller, but like sort of like true crime type novel. I don't know if you read it.
No, I haven't, but I know my buddy Josh Marcella, he loves Richard Chizmar because he's a Mainer.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So he like essentially like he was the central character, and it was just like interesting kind of the way he did that. And he set it up like a total true crime book. There's like photos all through it. It was like really cool kind of experience. And then like there's a lot of mention of like cemetery dance and all that stuff.
Yeah.
In there. So it was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty neat. It was a clever idea.
Yeah. Okay, going back to the Tier Collector. Yeah, we'll still call it the Tier Collector until it comes out with a new name.
Yeah.
What's the name of the kid that comes in a little bit later into the thing, the
Dev.
surfer kid?
Dev.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he comes into the story a little bit later. He's not one of the like initially introduced kids. Did you have this character? I thought he was a cool character. Like actually just like a cool kid, but a cool character too. Was that something where you're like, something's missing and inserted that in, or did you have like this idea coming into it like, oh, you know what, just to kind of keep things moving along, we'll have this other new voice kind of thrown into the mix of things at a later time?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like on the fly, but I thought it would be fun to like sort of like mix in somebody that's not really from their like little tiny small town, like somebody that has sort of like outside influences that sort of drive their behavior. And if you notice, like not very long after that, it sort of like drives the storyline because Dev has these experiences outside of Harper Pass that those boys probably just wouldn't have. So they have sort of an epic paintball fight at one point.
Well, I was thinking for a second that it was Dev that kicks the kid in the nuts, but that's Brooks that kicks the kid in the nuts.
Yeah. You gotta have some like nut kicking in your stories.
You gotta at least once.
It's coming of age,
Sorry if that's a spoiler alert for anybody. There is some nut kicking, so if that's a trigger for you, I've seen people that write. I'm trying not to be insensitive or laugh when I say this, but I've seen people that write reviews for horror novels that are just like,
I don't know why you had to like kill a child character.
Like, I mean, you're reading a horror novel. Yeah. You're reading a horror novel. Like something in that is going to happen. It's going to be upsetting on purpose. Like, if you're like,
I was okay with it until they killed a kid. Like,
I hope that reader stays away from my book.
Yeah. So I don't know. Have you ever had anybody? I haven't looked real deep on your reviews. Have you ever had anybody be like,
this book just upset me?
No, I haven't had anybody like say anything about the kids. The one thing that I'm surprised that I haven't gotten is, there's a scene and it makes sense with the plot, and it's not like animal cruelty on the page, but something happens to these animals, and it's a pretty gory scene, and it is purposeful in that it's sort of part of the plot, and it comes into play and sort of explains something that happened and like the severity of whatever it is that attacked these animals. But I am a little surprised that I didn't get dragged a little bit for that, because I know people are very sensitive. Like, I love animals. I grew up with animals.
Yeah.
People are like very, sensitive about their pets and stuff. But I do try to handle it in a somewhat less still graphic, but like it's not like animal.
But it has a purpose. It's not there just to be like, I'm gonna gross you out.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't know. Do you ever get that way? Do you ever go like, man, I'm just really gonna treat my audience to something awful right now? Or do you usually just let it be driven by the story?
I sort of let it be driven by the story, and I mean,
Because I mean, you've probably read too, like especially independent books. You
mm,
see people get away with more sometimes. There are some people that it's just like page after page of just intense shit that you almost have to go like, man, I don't know if I can.
yeah, it
I
might
don't know
need
if
to
I
take a
can
break.
read half of this.
Go get a
Oh,
hug from somebody.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But
so
I don't get that. I don't get the impression from you that because anytime there's like child violence or anything like that, or animal cruelty, potentially, allegedly, whatever, whatever. It's kind of tricky, but uh, yeah, I think everything that I've read in your book, it seems story driven. It doesn't seem unnecessary or just like,
it
oh,
tries
this
not to
is
be
just hard to
gratuitous
stomach.
just to be gratuitous.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I will say, like, there's some intense things that happen in it, and there's some gory moments, and
yeah.
you
Like we
know,
alluded to, somebody's body being like popped open like a bag of popcorn.
right. But that, I mean, at the end of the day, that's horror too, and
Yeah,
I definitely don't ever set out to like gross anyone out. I think that's just the way the story sort of evolves. If you're dealing with some kind of creature that sort of has, you know, more than human abilities, like there's going to be some consequences to that, and it sort of ups the stakes. So you need to sort of show some of that on the page to lend some credibility to your how dangerous your villain is.
yeah. If you had to wrap up your process in that neat of a way, in terms of writing your first draft or zero draft, depending on the buzzwords that you use, all the way to finished product, what's your kind of macro overview of that?
I mean, I type everything up on a word processor. Typically I am like revisiting the chapter prior on a new writing session. Just and I'll make edits. Like I'll edit continuously while I'm writing a book. I just feel like, to me, I know that's like not the process that most people use, but to me that just like helps keep me in line with where I'm going with the story, make sure there's no major plot holes or anything along the way. And then, once I wrap it up, get to the end, and I'll go over it 1,000 times. I mean, obviously that's a little bit hyperbole there, but
Yeah. It feels it. Well, it's funny that you said 1,000 because I talked to, before I ever had a podcast or wrote my book even, Stephen James, and he said that he can pretty much set a timer now for 1,000 hours, and by the time he gets to 1,000 hours, he's more or less done with the book. He might just have a few things to do. So he's got it down to a science. It's like, yep, it takes me 1,000 hours to write a novel.
it is a big investment of time. That is for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I would be curious to like go back and figure out what my hourly wage is on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
People do
I don't
this
know.
because they love it.
Yeah,
For the
because
most part.
and for me too, like sitting down and whoops, hit my microphone. Sitting down and air quotes writing for 2 hours might be a page or not even a whole page whole page some days. And some days I think one day I had to stop myself. I had flipped like 16, 17 pages just on a legal pad and was like, I should probably stop and type some of this out before I keep going.
Right. Before you write the whole thing and then have to type the whole thing.
Yeah, because that's another thing that I've already said him a couple times. Brandon Scott, he likes to write by hand, but he's like, man, it's just so hard to write by hand and then go back and type it all. I was like, yeah, it
So
sucks, but
people say, people say, I think there's been studies done that like you sort of access a different part of your brain when you're like writing that way versus typing.
yeah. I actually wrote about it, especially if you write in cursive. If you write in cursive particularly, then you're really deep accessing your brain.
Yeah, that's to me, I find that pretty interesting. Like, I can't imagine myself personally like moving away from typing because it's the most efficient way that I can do things. But I can see how there would be some huge advantages to like writing it out, and then when you're typing it again, I think that gives you opportunities to sort of maybe see things in a different way that you might not have noticed the other way.
Yeah, and I think actually the person that put the idea in my head first, write it down, then type it out, was Ernest Hemingway. he's like, you'll catch a lot of stuff, things that shouldn't be there, things that should be there between writing it and then typing it out. But honestly, I just found that anytime I wrote my first draft on the computer, I would cut out so much of it. And I think I just got distracted by all the yellow and red lines. Where it's like, did you mean this, or try this word? Did you want to have a comma here? It's like, I don't need that much distraction while I'm just trying to generate ideas. So for me, it just got it in my way, and I don't think I ever really got in a flow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So for me, it's not like I do this because it's the true artistic way. It's like, no, dude, I'm a little bit too neurodivergent, and I get distracted on a computer, and I'll flip over and start looking at my Instagram or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just found my most recent time suck, which is a pretty awesome site. Are you on Slasher?
Slasher? No.
Okay. So it's like an app. I think it's only app delivered. I don't think you can get it like on the web, but it is like 100% devoted to like horror. And it's just like, it's like a social media like site. And it is awesome. Like, I have to say, I really like my feed on Slasher. It's all about movies, books, different things, anything horror, man. And it's just awesome. You just network with, meet people who are into the same stuff as you are.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to ask a couple of my friends about that. TJ Tranchel?
Yeah.
I was gonna say that sounds like something he'd probably be into too. He actually edited my book. I don't know if you saw that on the inside cover.
I did.
And do you know what he's writing right now?
He told me he was working on he's about to work on a nonfiction thing, but I'm not sure what that was.
No, right? He's working on the novelization of Footloose. He was actually commissioned to write it. Yeah, because he one of his books was listed for 50 states, 50 scares, and I think it was Cry Down Dark was the scariest book that took place in Utah.
Yeah.
The producers of Footloose saw that and they're like, "Oh, let's get him then. He's a good writer from Utah. He'll be able to do Footloose because Footloose takes place in Utah."
That's funny.
So he's doing the novelization of Footloose. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, that is awesome. Speaking of TJ, I just bought a Jason Voorhees belt buckle from him. He listed a few like horror items on there. I'm like, I'll take that. Thank you.
Good for you. Yeah, because I think he's actually trying to raise a little money for his trip out to Utah to do some more research.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. I was thinking it was a nonfiction project, but I didn't realize it was the novelization of Footloose. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think we broke the news officially on this podcast too, so that was pretty fun.
Nice.
Yes. Have a nice display when you sell things in public. You seem like you know where to make the rounds, and not just where to make the rounds, but how to make the rounds. The first 2 times I set up a table to sell books, I just had a table. I didn't have anything that said who I was or like a nice stand. I just had like books sitting there, and people would walk by and kind of like just keep going, like, because all the other people had like these nice displays, things up behind them, and I was just a guy at a table, and I was like, "Hi." So, first of all, what's your kind of story and evolution behind finding places to sell and then actually working those places?
So, I had never actually been to a horror con. So, I did ask some friends who are writers who had been, just to kind of see, what their experience was. But I would think that's genuinely your best way is to like go around, look at booths. So what I did was went online and just like, searched everything I could find about like what, booths look like. And I didn't want to feel like sort of out of place.
Yeah.
Once I got there. So the first one that I ever did was Scares That Care AuthorCon, which turned out to be like an absolutely fabulous event.
Yeah. And you were just at the most recent one, right?
Yeah, I was at the charity weekend, which was also a blast. And
yeah, you had some great pics from that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, so my background, loving Halloween, like that is like right up my alley. Like people are like decked out, and all kinds of things from like Terminator.
The nurse that had the all bandaged up face and the blood everywhere.
The Silent Hill,
I was gonna say Resident Evil, but Silent Hill.
So you probably can tell from my picture, that little video clip that I had, but like the makeup job that she had with like the veins like sticking out of her legs everywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, it was just like incredible, like Hollywood FX like quality
Yeah.
stuff. So I of course loved all that because I'm just kind of into Halloween. We've always done like big Halloween haunts at our house. I don't know if you know David Boyles, but he's
No,
kind of
so-
like, I feel like he's like my kindred spirit. Like he writes for art too, but he's like loves to like deck out his house and do all that stuff for Halloween.
Yeah.
But so I got some ideas off the internet. So I knew I sort of wanted to make like a table banner.
Mhm.
So I went to one of my friends who's designed some things for me in the past. That's a skill I wish I had learned.
Oh man, visual art of any kind.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't have it.
Yeah, I don't either. Anyway, so she made me like kind of a cool logo and sort of branded it the way I wanted to brand it. And now that I have a new book coming out, Ghost of Groove Hollow, I'm not going to spoil too much by telling you this. There's like a tarot card scene in like one of the chapters where one of the characters gets a tarot reading, and it's sort of I don't want to say a pivotal moment, but it's an important moment in the book. And so I ended up making these tarot cards with all the characters from the book, like most of the central characters from the book.
Yeah.
And for like pre-orders and stuff, I'm gonna end up like sending those out because
That's very cool.
They're fun.
Yeah.
So
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I got a book one time that had a Uno card that had something written on it that was symbolic to like the book that it was in, and that's fun stuff.
Yeah, so I thought that's kind of neat. So I kind of spread those out on my booth. Right at this point, I only have 2 books, so it's like, so the 2 sides of my booth are sort of bookended with the 2 books.
You're in those places, and you're between people that are like, I've got this series, this series, this standalone, these nonfiction. You're like, huh,
yeah, they don't have
cool.
room for all the like swag and stuff out on my booth. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, like doing one of those, it's just sort of you hope to create something like with your booth, at least that's sort of eye catching, and just hope to get somebody's attention long enough to talk to them and just give them a little bit of a flavor for what your writing's about or what your books are about.
You seem like you're a pretty laid back guy, but I know talking to a couple people that they're like, man, after doing a weekend at those things, you're just burnt out because like every time somebody comes up to you, you're like, it's a story about a hunt. Oh, sorry.
I actually love it. I mean, it's been the greatest experience. And like I said, I've only done 2. So I've done, and they've both been scares that care. Next year, I'm hoping to branch out and do a few others. But I actually love just like meeting everybody that's sort of into I'm into the same kind of things. I know you are too.
Yeah.
Like, while I do write books, I'm also a fan of everyone else that's putting out this kind of fiction. So to me, it's like a super cool experience in 2 ways. Like you get to meet the readers. These are readers that are super into like the kind of stuff that you write. So it's like your perfect demographic.
Yeah.
You get to hang out with them at the bar later.
Yeah.
Does
your location in a place like that matter? Because I would imagine like if there's one entrance and you're as far from the entrance as you can get, by the time somebody gets to you, they're like, sorry, I already bought 8 books, man. Like, is there any of that in play? Like,
yeah, no, I think that does matter somewhat. So like I was a little late to the party on Scares That Care, the charity event. So this most recent one that I went to. So I was actually not on the main floor, which is downstairs. There's a whole nother floor, and it's not set up like a large room with a lot of vendors. What it is like smaller, almost like classroom size or smaller rooms.
Oh.
And so what they did was set up about like 4 booths in each of those. Now, I was very fortunate on the room I got, I think, because it was the one that directly was facing where people exited the elevator and also came up the stairs.
Nice.
So we ended up getting quite a bit of traffic in that room, but I know there were some other rooms that I think they struggled to get some traffic. And I could probably guarantee you we got a lot less traffic than that was on the main booth floor, because I did visit there
Yeah.
a few times. Even though it was only me, it was like, I hated to abandon my booth. But
Yeah.
occasionally you got to go down and like, grab some books and
Yeah, go meet other people and see what's going on. I had the same feeling. Anytime I walked away from my booth for even a couple of minutes, I'm like, what if, nobody's even stopped by and looked in the last 20 minutes? What if 3 people come by while I'm gone? Ah.
exactly.
But yeah, no, I don't think I missed any sales when I was gone. But yeah, I've gotten advice from a couple people that were like, man, you got to be aggressive. If you see somebody that's wearing a shirt that you like, you be like, hey man, come here, nice shirt. Like holler at people almost like carnival barker style. Do you see people doing that? Are you doing a little of that?
I mean, I'm pretty friendly,
Yeah.
to begin with. So I'm generally like pretty outgoing like that. So I I work sales for an 8 to 5 type job,
Oh,
which
that all comes in pretty good.
hard to keep it.
Skill
8
wise
to
comes
5.
in handy, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I enjoy being around people. I enjoy chatting with people. So like that part, I think that part is important.
Yeah.
Especially there's somebody that may love the stuff that you write, but there is so much going on at one of these shows. Like their eyes just may never even meet your booth. They may just walk right past it.
Yeah.
Now, the good thing is these things tend to be like 2 to 3 days. And I think what happens a lot is people will go through like the first day and check out everything before they even really spend a whole lot of money. So like you were saying earlier, they might I just bought 7 or 8 books.
Yeah, I brought $40 and I spent it all. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
So typically they'll go scope out, what they want to buy. I will say, like at the AuthorCon event, since it's totally dedicated to authors, I mean, those people came to buy books. Like some of them left with 50, 60 books.
Holy shit. Because that's the thing I think about when I think about going to one of those, is like, man, it's going to be so hard to stand out if you go all the way out there and, just I guess all the self-doubt things that that any creative person deals with. But I don't know,
Yeah,
man. Do you feel like you got plenty of, you don't have to tell me all your exact sales numbers, but was it worthwhile, like sales wise, going out to those things?
Yeah, it's 100% worthwhile. Like I don't think you're ever going to pay for your whole trip or whatever.
Yeah.
If you can pay for your hotel, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger thing is you get to meet, other authors in your space, who are writing in your space. And I love like, a lot of the friends that I've gotten to know really well, other authors,
Yeah.
like yourself on like social media, but like getting to actually meet these people and, just get to hang out and have some fun and talk about books and different stuff is like, it's just like one step more, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting close to the end here. So do that same elevator pitch for the new book. We've talked about the tier collector a little bit, some of the characters. People have an idea what that's about. What can people expect in the prequel here?
So in the prequel, I think it's
You've already said it's 1934, right?
No, it's 1932. So it's
1932. Sorry.
It's the height of the Great Depression in Harper Pass, so it's in the same universe, but you've got like these completely different characters, and if you sort of got like a whole underlying racial element running through that because of happenstance and one character happening to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and from the core of the tier collector, as far as like the big bad is concerned, there's a lot of similarities there, but there's also a lot of differences just because of the time period. So it's a really fast-paced read. I think it's pretty scary. Read.
And this one's a novella too, right?
It is a novella, yeah.
So a novella is by definition like under 50,000 or 60,000 words.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere between like 20 and 50 is like the standard definition for a novella.
Okay. So it's a good one for
like
somebody
this one's like right around 20, so it's a short novella.
Okay, yeah. So then this one would be if somebody's like, I don't know if I want to commit to reading a whole novel, read the prequel first, and then you can read them in chronological order in which they take place, or vice versa. But yeah, okay. So 1934, or no, I just did it
32.
again. 32. Jeez. All right.
So, one of my friends, Joe, who read it, he's also an author. He goes by Jotham Austin the third.
Oh yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if you know him.
I don't know him well, but we've interacted a little bit.
He's an awesome guy. But anyways, he read it, and he really feels like it's ideal for fans of people that like Ghost Road Blues, like same kind of like vibe to it. And I don't, it's sort of mixing that supernatural and the other elements that are in it, which kind of works in a similar way. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's scary. I think like some of it's creepy and unsettling as you work your way through it. And, there's some nice surprises in there for like, I think for a short work, you really get an idea of like who these characters are, and you sort of feel for some and feel maybe a little angry at others.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like the others that you might have some anger towards, it's also like a little tragic because of like they're not getting a whole picture on maybe why they're doing things.
Yeah.
So, I think it's like one of those reads that like it is no risk because you can get that one for free digitally right now for me. If you're on Twitter, you can just go right up to my pinned tweet and grab that for free. I mean, that's kind of the idea behind this one. Or you can hop on my website and order a paperback if you prefer that way.
If you had to recommend a movie and a TV show to somebody right now, doesn't have to be your all-time favorite. It can be your all-time favorite, or it can be something that you're really into now. Just if somebody was like,
man, Shawn, recommend a good movie and TV show to me.
So I'm going to go a little bit different direction because like for the actual movie, because I just saw Prey and I'm obsessed with that movie right now. I don't necessarily think that is indicative of what I write. Now there are some similarities. You got like a big bad that's like hunting sort of characters, although their motivation is more for sport, where my motivations of my evil characters tend to be obviously some kind of grudge from the past. But that movie Prey, the new Predator movie, I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard only amazing things.
It is phenomenal. I actually watched it back to back the day it came out. Like I finished it and I was like, you know what? I'm watching that again.
And someone said too that it's the first major motion picture with an all Native American cast.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
So apparently there's a dub in Comanche, so I'm gonna watch it a third time in Comanche.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's not like readily apparent when you go on Hulu, but apparently there is. You just have to search for it a little bit.
Huh. Yeah, that's cool. I remember it's nothing like that either, but Arrested Development.
Oh, I love that show, man.
They did the same thing on Netflix where they had recut one of the old seasons into a new mix, but then if you searched for a certain thing, then you could find the old ones the way that they were. I don't know. It was a weird, nerdy Arrested Development thing.
That was an awesome show.
Oh man, I
didn't
love the last season they made, but
yeah,
still good.
There's always money in the banana stand.
There's always money.
Oh yeah, no, that was a great show. And then as far as shows though, I will go sort of similar universe. I think Stranger Things, minus all the interdimensional stuff and sort of superpower stuff. I think there's a lot of similarities as far as the coming of age feel and sort of chemistry and dynamic between my characters, and even to some extent the subject matter itself. I personally love that show. Just watch the new season. Now my kids are Stranger Things junkies. That's now they're like watching videos of all the actors like doing raps and stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'm not even to the season that's out yet.
Yeah.
We got derailed watching something else. Oh, I remember what it was. It was the speaking of horror, and not really in your face horror, but just like, what the fuck is going on here? It was the Haunting series, not the Haunting of Hill House, but Haunting of Bly Manor.
Oh, was it good?
Dude, it was really good. Like, you're like, I know what's gonna happen, just do it. Oh wait, no, that's not. It keeps you so like it. I don't know. There you
Keep
go. That's
on edge a little bit, waiting for it to happen.
yeah. That I'm just gonna let the whole that's what it does to my brain. That's how good it is.
Now everybody keeps recommending Lake Mungo. That's a movie, and
Haven't seen it.
Found footage. I've started it a couple of times, but I think I'm starting it too late because it's really slow at the beginning to develop. But apparently, it's fantastic. So one of these days, I want to. There's just too many things that I'm trying to do to get to all of it. So
yeah, same. I've got a list. I mean, well, I've already got like 5 books that I want to read, and a list of probably like 8 just sci-fi shows, because I've had a lot of people be like, "Oh man, have you seen Primer?" I'm like, "Nope." They're like, you got to see Primer. So now I've got Primer and a couple other movies, a couple other low budget sci-fi movies that people are like, "Dude, you like low budget sci-fi? You got to see this."
We're sort of in the renaissance of entertainment right now, because with all these competitive streaming services, I mean, there's more stuff getting made now than I can ever remember.
Oh yeah.
We went through that period where it was all reality television. That was not my favorite.
Yeah, I could take or leave most of it. Honestly, I will say though, I really liked the first season of I was gonna say Road Rules, not Road Rules, The Real World.
Okay.
The first season of that show, they had like normal looking people. They had like a chubby guy that sang country music, and like a dirty guy that never took a shower. Like, real people. Now it's all just super sexy people that drink a lot and are very horny, and it's like,
right.
It's okay. There's an audience for that, I guess, but it's not what I would call intriguing.
Right. Yeah. I need a little bit more story, I guess.
Yeah. Just a little bit more than like, oh, they're trying to run an ice cream store today, huh? Oh, okay.
Let's see how this goes. It's gonna be a disaster.
Yeah.
I did want to let you know I'm about halfway through your book and really enjoying it. So
right on.
I'm looking forward to finishing that one and seeing how it ends. It's definitely getting really interesting around midway.
Yeah, it just I kept trying to pile it on all the way to the end. So
yeah. But no. Other than that, I got a new release, or the re-release of the Tear Collector coming September 1st, and then Ghost of Grief Hollow coming towards the end of October. Like I was pretty insistent that happens before Halloween.
Awesome. Well, yeah, man. If nothing else, then maybe we can get you on even just for a quick promo to remind people that that's out there when that comes out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I appreciate you having me on, Chris. It was really a pleasure to kind of like get to know you face to face.
Yeah,
and then
because we've talked back and forth on Twitter and Instagram. It's almost weird when you turn on the screen. It's like, holy shit, there's a real person behind there.
Well, hopefully we get to the same con one of these days, and then we can like have a beer. And
that would be awesome, because I've been telling my wife for years now, we haven't gone back to Jacksonville. And I think now, because I was there when I was in the Navy, someone told me that they opened up the Navy bases to veterans. So
I think
I got to get back there
and stuff there.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. We'll go over to the Navy base, you and me, and we'll play golf sometime.
Sounds perfect, man. I'll get my clearance.
All right. Well, hey, man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for the book. As soon as I finish Brian's book, then I'm going to go and read the prequel. So, and then I know what I'm going to be reading this fall when when the sequel comes out.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one to drop.
Awesome, man. Well, good luck with all of it, and just keep writing, man. Keep writing. Even if it's just for me, I'll buy your stories on Word documents if nobody else will.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.
Right. You too. Bye.
Just kidding. They liked us. We can let it up.
All right. Thank you, everybody. If you're still listening, man, you made it. Congratulations. Hit me up on Instagram and be like, dude, I actually did it. I listened to the whole goddamn thing. Thank you, Shawn Burgess. You were amazing. We'll have you on again, bud. Look in the show notes for links to get his books. I will see you later. Mwah.
Yeah, man. Weird, right?